The Meal Tray Code. Before we get into today's story, hit that subscribe button and like this video, because what you're about to hear might just change the way you think about food forever. It started with a rumor. Inmates at Green River Correctional Facility, one of America's most notorious maximum security prisons, whispered about a man whose tray never looked the same as everyone else's. While others got bland slop, cold beans, overcooked rice, and dry bread, his food came sealed, labeled, and carried by guards who never spoke. His name was Victor V. Renzetti, and his legend began long before he ever stepped behind those walls. Before prison, Renzetti ran a crime empire that stretched from Miami to Chicago: extortion, racketeering, laundering. But what made him infamous wasn't just power. It was control. Every deal, every rival, every hit was calculated like a game of chess. When he was finally caught, federal agents didn't celebrate. They looked nervous. Because Victor didn't fear prison. He wanted to be there. On his first night at Green River, Victor asked the warden for one thing: control over my meals. Everyone laughed. Nobody gets special treatment in a max facility. But by week's end, he had it. No one knew how he pulled it off, but one thing was clear: his food came from somewhere else. The kitchen staff never touched it. The guards who delivered it never spoke. Even the warden started avoiding questions. Then came the first body. An inmate named Reggie Moss, known for selling contraband, collapsed in the yard during morning rec. The autopsy said food poisoning, which made no sense. They all ate the same slop. Except Victor. He was seen smiling as Reggie's body was rolled out. From that day, whispers filled every corridor. Some said Victor was paying off kitchen workers to poison rivals. Others swore he had a deal with someone outside, that his special meals were coded messages, instructions for his empire still running beyond the bars. Officer Maya Benton, a rookie corrections investigator, was assigned to monitor Victor's routine. Her first observation report read simply: he eats slowly, like he's decoding something. She noted that he would study each tray before taking a bite, tracing the compartments with his fingers like he was reading Braille. 3 days later, another inmate turned up dead. Same pattern: convulsions, internal bleeding, untraceable toxins. Benton began to suspect the unthinkable. Someone was killing through the food system itself. When she requested to review kitchen footage, half of it was missing. Data gaps. Hours gone. The head of security brushed it off as server corruption. But Benton had seen that excuse before. It was the same code word used in federal investigations when someone higher up wanted evidence erased. Late one night, Benton stayed after shift, alone in the surveillance office. She combed through hundreds of hours of silent footage, grainy, blue-tinted frames showing lines of inmates collecting trays. Then, at 2:13 a.m., she found it. In the footage, a food cart rolled into the kitchen. No staff. No guards. Just the cart. Someone had pushed it through the back door, out of camera range. Then, a shadow appeared, tall, wearing a uniform with no name tag. The shadow opened one of the sealed trays, pulled out a slip of paper, and placed something inside before resealing it. When Benton paused the frame, she zoomed in. The tray label read, Renzetti Victor, Cell 9B. That night, Benton broke protocol and went to Victor's cell during lights out. She found him awake, sitting at his desk, tray still untouched. The room smelled faintly of cinnamon. Strange, since no spices were ever issued in prison food. Officer Benton, Victor said, without looking up. You've been watching me. How do you know my name? She asked, pulse rising. He smiled faintly. You read my file. I read yours. That's how balance works in here. She stepped closer. What's in the food, Victor? He looked up then, eyes steady, unblinking. Freedom, he said, in its purest form. Before she could respond, he picked up a spoon, dipped it into the rice compartment, and stirred. A thin metallic glint flashed beneath the grains, something that looked like a folded piece of foil. Benton reached forward, but Victor's hand shot out, gripping her wrist. His voice dropped to a whisper. If you open it now, you'll never eat again. He let go. The air between them felt colder, heavier. Benton took a step back, staring at the tray. Her instincts screamed that she'd stumbled into something bigger than inmate rivalry or contraband smuggling. This was structured, calculated, a system. Victor leaned back in his chair, smirking. You want to know what prisoners really eat in maximum security? We eat what they feed the world, just sooner than everyone else. Her brow furrowed. What does that mean? But before he could answer, the facility lights flickered and went out, total blackout. The alarms stayed silent. Only the hum of emergency power echoed through the halls. When the lights returned 30 seconds later, Victor's tray was empty. The foil was gone, and written on the cell wall in sauce were 5 words. It starts in the kitchen. Benton stumbled back, heart pounding. She called for backup, but the radio crackled dead. Somewhere in the distance, a door slammed, metal against metal. She turned back to the cell. Victor was gone, and his untouched meal tray, the one that started everything, now sat perfectly clean, polished, like it had never been used. The feeding line. When the power came back on at Green River Correctional Facility, Officer Maya Benton's world changed. Victor Renzetti, the man every guard feared but pretended to control, had vanished from a locked cell during a 30-second blackout. No signs of struggle. No breach on the cameras. Just gone. The warden's explanation was immediate. System glitch. Transfer error. He'll turn up. But Benton had been on the job long enough to know that when the word glitch was used, it meant someone powerful didn't want questions asked. The following morning, she walked into the kitchen block, the beating heart of the prison, and the one place where nothing made sense. The air smelled like bleach and burnt oats. Dozens of inmates stood in line, trays in hand, eyes dull from routine. Steam hissed from the metal vats, but something was off. The kitchen's head cook, Earl Donovan, a lifer doing 30 for armed robbery, wouldn't meet her eyes. "Morning, Earl," Benton said, flashing her badge. "Need access to your shipment logs." Earl's jaw tightened. "We already got clearance checks, ma'am. Supplies come straight from the vendor. Nothing shady." She leaned closer. "Then you won't mind if I look for myself." He hesitated. His eyes flickered to the ceiling corner, where a tiny, blinking red light watched them. Then, with a low growl, he handed her a clipboard. "You didn't get this from me." The list was short. Rice, beans, bread, powdered milk, and nutritional compound X13. No supplier name, no label, no invoice. Just a barcode and the word approved. Benton frowned. "What the hell is X13? Earl swallowed hard. "We don't cook it. We just serve it." At that moment, the delivery gate buzzer sounded. A truck pulling in for the next shipment. Benton turned as 2 guards rolled in a pallet stacked with sealed silver crates. No prison vendor markings. Just one black sticker across each. Property of the Federal Nutrition Program. She snapped a photo, then walked to one of the crates. "Open it." The guard shook his head. "Orders say." "Now," Benton snapped. Reluctantly, he pried open the lid. Inside were hundreds of vacuum-sealed meal trays, identical to Victor's, each one labeled with random inmate numbers. But instead of names, there were small QR codes and red stamps that read classified. "Do not distribute." Her stomach turned cold. Whatever these meals were, they weren't normal prison rations. When she brought the evidence to the warden, he laughed it off. "Those are part of a research program, Benton. Nutrition testing. Helps the inmates, helps the feds. Don't make it into something it's not." She slammed the file on his desk. One of those trays was linked to 2 inmate deaths. And your star prisoner disappeared during a blackout. Tell me that's coincidence. The warden's smile faded. "You're out of your depth." But Benton wasn't backing down. That night, she broke into the warden's office. Inside his safe, she found an encrypted USB drive. It contained months of cafeteria footage, only not from Green River. The clips were from other prisons, all across the country. Same trays, same QR codes, same food. And in every file, one recurring tag at the bottom. Program, Operation Rehabilitation. She clicked on one clip labeled ADX Florence. The timestamp was 3 years earlier. The footage showed Victor Renzetti, younger, calmer, sitting in a cell identical to his one at Green River, eating the same sealed meal. Only this time, after finishing, He folded the tray and removed a hidden microchip from the underside. Then he smiled at the camera, straight at her, as if he knew she'd be watching someday, and said, "Tell them the kitchen runs everything." Benton's pulse raced. This wasn't about nutrition. It was a network, a distribution channel. Each tray wasn't just food. It was a vessel. Messages, microdata, and maybe even biological agents were being shipped through prison kitchens across the U.S. But who was behind it? The next morning, she woke to chaos. Green River was on lockdown. 2 inmates dead in the infirmary, their stomachs ruptured from internal chemical burns. The medic handed Benton the autopsy results. "It's not poison," he whispered. "It's synthetic enzymes. They were tested on, like lab rats." Her mind spun. Prisoners across the country, fed by the same system, dying under nutritional pretenses. And Victor, the one man connected to all of it, was now off the grid. At 3 a.m., Benton received an anonymous email. The subject line, "You want answers? Go where the food begins." Attached was a single image, a satellite photo of a massive distribution center in Nevada, labeled Green Harvest Industries. She zoomed in. The trucks parked outside bore the same logo as the crates in the prison kitchen. Benton packed her badge, gun, and a flash drive of evidence. She didn't tell the warden. She didn't trust anyone. 6 hours later, she stood outside the desert facility, watching as forklifts moved the same silver crates onto unmarked trucks. The air smelled faintly metallic, not like food, but like chemicals. She slipped past the gate, heart pounding, into a dark, loading bay. The interior was spotless, silent, almost sterile. Then she saw it. Hundreds of identical prison meal trays stacked on conveyor belts, moving through mechanical arms that filled them with pale, viscous paste. A voice behind her said, "I told you, Officer Benton, it starts in the kitchen." She spun around. Victor Renzetti stood there, dressed not in inmate orange, but in a pressed gray suit, a security badge clipped to his lapel that read, "Executive Director, Green Harvest Industries." Her throat went dry. "You run this." He smiled faintly. "Run? No. I perfected it. The system feeds the prisoners. The prisoners feed the system." "What's in the food, Victor?" she demanded. He took a step closer, ice cold. "Progress. The government needed willing test subjects. Who's more disposable than those already condemned?" Benton's hand reached for her weapon, but Victor raised a hand. "You think you can stop this? Look around. The same food goes to soldiers, schools, even hospitals now. You'd have to burn the whole country to end it." A loud alarm blared. Security lights flashed red. Guards stormed in. Victor turned toward them calmly. "She's not supposed to be here." As Benton was tackled to the ground, she saw him walk past the conveyor belts, untouched, confident, unstoppable. The last thing she heard before everything went black was his voice, echoing through the intercom. "Dinner is served." The final tray. Maya Benton woke up to the rhythmic hum of engines. Her head throbbed, wrists bound, the smell of fuel thick in the air. She was in the back of a truck, metal walls, flickering fluorescent light, and those same silver meal crates stacked to the ceiling, each one stamped, "Property of Green Harvest Industries." Her mind replayed Victor's words on loop. The system feeds the prisoners. The prisoners feed the system. As she shifted, a loose strap cut into her skin. Her hands brushed against something sharp, a fractured seal on one of the crates. She tore it open with trembling fingers. Inside, meal trays, identical to those she'd seen before, but now she could see what lay beneath the sealed food layer. Tiny metallic chips, embedded under the surface like circuitry. She whispered, "They're tracking them, controlling them." The truck screeched to a halt. A door swung open, blinding light flooding in. 2 men in black uniforms grabbed her by the arms. "Warden wants you gone," one said. "Which one?" Benton spat. The man smirked. "The one who signs both your paychecks." They dragged her out into a vast, isolated compound, the real Green Harvest facility, surrounded by desert and silence. Massive silos loomed like towers, pipes snaking between them. Every few seconds, a hiss of compressed air echoed, as if the whole place were breathing. And there he was, Victor Renzetti, standing beside a glass observation room, perfectly calm. His prison tattoos peeked through the cuff of his tailored suit. "You're awake," he said smoothly. "I hoped you would be." Benton glared. "You're killing people, Victor. You're poisoning them." He laughed quietly. "No, Maya. I'm saving them. You still think this is about punishment or power? It's about design." She stepped closer. "Design." He motioned toward the silos. "Each meal we send out contains nanobiotic sequences. They modify behavior, reduce aggression, increase compliance. You can't reform millions of violent inmates with counseling or prayer, but you can alter what feed them." Her stomach turned. "You're experimenting on humans." "They're prisoners," he said coldly. "Society forgot them long before I did. I just gave them a purpose." Benton clenched her fists. "You think this will stay in prisons? You're feeding the same meals to hospitals, schools." He smiled. "You're catching on." She lunged forward, but a guard held her back. Victor turned to a nearby monitor, where data streams flowed, inmate numbers, meal schedules, biometric charts. Each one showed improved compliance rates. "This is your legacy," she hissed. "Mind control through lunch." Victor's expression softened just slightly. "Legacy? No. Survival. You've seen what humanity does when left alone. Chaos. This brings order, predictability, peace." She stared at him in disbelief. "You sound like every tyrant in history." His voice lowered. "The difference is, they failed. I won't." At that moment, the building shook violently. An alarm blared. Steam hissed from the upper vents, and red lights flashed across the silo walls. One of the guards shouted, "Containment breach in Lab 3. Benton seized the chaos. She slammed her shoulder into the guard, grabbed his dropped weapon, and sprinted toward the stairwell. Behind her, Victor's voice echoed through the loudspeakers. "Don't fight it, Maya. You're part of the plan now." She burst into the lab, a cold chamber lined with hundreds of transparent containers. Inside each one floated a human silhouette, pale, suspended, connected by tubes. Clones, test subjects, or something far worse. Above each pod, the same logo, Federal Nutrition Program. Her breath caught. Oh my God! Each body bore identical scars, and on one of them, faint but visible, was a name tattooed across the shoulder. V. Renzetti. She stumbled backward. "There's more than one of you." A calm voice came from behind. "Insurance." Victor stood at the doorway, gun in hand. "You didn't think I'd risk this operation on one life, did you?" "You're not human anymore," she said, trembling. He stepped closer. "Neither is the world I'm building." Without hesitation, Benton fired. The bullet shattered the observation glass. Sparks erupted as alarm screamed. The temperature dropped rapidly as coolant flooded the lab. Victor fell, clutching his chest, but even as he went down, a faint smirk crossed his face. "You can't stop the feed," he whispered. Benton slammed the emergency control panel, overriding the system. One by one, the silo pipelines burst, spewing white vapor into the air. Flames ignited along the conveyors as the facility burned from within. She ran for the exit, choking on smoke, the world collapsing behind her. Just as she reached the outer gate, a final explosion tore through the building. A flash so bright it erased the night. Hours later, emergency crews found her barely conscious on the highway shoulder, clutching a melted data drive. When asked what happened, she simply said, "They were feeding us lies." The footage from her drive would later leak online. Images of the cloned test subjects, the trays, and Victor's haunting monologue about control through nutrition. Within days, every major outlet ran the story. The Federal Nutrition Program was shut down. Green Harvest Industries was erased. But a month later, a new prison shipment arrived at Green River Correctional. The meal trays looked different, cheaper, more colorful, branded under a new name, Project Renewal. The guards shrugged it off. Progress had to continue. That night, one of them opened a tray, curious about the new recipe. Inside, beneath the mashed potatoes, was a small metallic strip. Etched into it were two words, "Dinner's back." And somewhere, On a hidden server in the desert, a data file blinked online. Operation Rehabilitation, Phase 2, Civilian Integration. Maya Benton watched the broadcast from her hospital bed, her hands trembling. She knew what it meant. Victor Renzetti, or whatever version of him survived, had never stopped. The camera lingered on her face as she whispered, "Prison never ended. It just got bigger."